What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Must start and avoid running backs for week 2. I'll be going over every single running back this week, and if you have any further questions, then just look at my rankings at our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. But let's start things off right away with Cardinals at Ravens. You're starting both fantasy relevant running backs on both sides of the ball this week. Realistically, it's only Mark Ingram and David Johnson. Those are the only two that you're really even considering starting. You might have concerns over David Johnson given the matchup, but he was a near every down player a week ago. He had more air yards last week than all of last season combined, and his routes run rivaled that of his breakout campaign. The Lions were also just as difficult of a matchup as the Ravens are, and he's proven to us to be matchup proof. So you're starting David Johnson in all leagues. Mark Ingram is an easy start as well. He was an easy start last week. The Cardinals' up-tempo offense will lead to a lot of plays for the Ravens, and their defense can't stop anyone. This should also be a positive game script given that the Ravens are favored by 13 points and are projected to score 30. This is the exact same situation as last week. Mark Ingram will be annoying over the rest of the season, but not in weeks 1 and 2. So start him, then trade him. Washington at Dallas is next, and for the Cowboys, it's pretty easy. Start Zeke. Washington isn't a garbage run defense, but they're not good either, and their stat line would have been worse last week if Miles Sanders didn't get the touchdown called back. Zeke should get more snaps each and every week, and he already had enough last week to be a weekly running back 1, so you're starting him. On Washington, remember Geis is out with the knee injury, so that leaves Peterson and Thompson. Peterson just taking over the Geis role, Thompson remaining in the role that he was before. I would not start Peterson unless you are desperate. Their line's not very good, and it's not going to be a great game script. Thompson can be started in full PPR leagues since this sets up more like a game where they're going to be trailing and need to throw the ball. And the Cowboys are an above average matchup for receiving running backs, but only as a flex and honestly only in full PPR leagues. They're only expected to score 21 points, and it's possible that the Cowboys are up really big late and can just run the ball in the second half, really limiting the amount of plays Washington can run. Colts at Titans next. Marlon Mack proved on Sunday that the offseason reports were true. The Colts want to use him as a featured back. He crushed Hines in snap share, and he ran more routes than Hines. The public will look at his 0 targets and think that's the same. They're going to think, oh, this is the exact same situation as last year. Hines is the receiving back. Incorrect. Mack ran 19 routes. He's going to be used as a pass catcher this season, and the Colts are going to be run first. He's the featured offensive weapon in this offense behind their dominant offensive line. So you are starting Marlon Mack in any matchup if you own him. No other Colts running back. On the Titans side, it's the same thing with Henry. You need to start him every week. The Titans offense was obviously aided by Baker Mayfield's 3 fourth quarter picks, but they finally improved their play calling this week, and they were just a dumpster fire over the past few seasons. Didn't look like that in week 1. Now, sometimes in week 1, coaches have so much time to prepare, and we're like, wow, I mean, this is incredible. They're finally being smart, and then the rest of the season they stink. So that is a possibility with the Titans, although I do believe they're going to have better play calling this year than last year. The Titans are also 3-point home favorites, implied to score 23.75 points against the Colts defense that just allowed 18 for 115 and a touchdown on the ground, plus 7 for another 102 touchdowns through the air, all to Chargers running backs. So Henry is a running back 1 this week. Seahawks at Pittsburgh. On the Seattle side, just Carson. The coaching staff indicated in August that they want Carson to be featured in the offense. That is exactly what they did. He dominated snaps and touches over Penny, even getting 21 of the offense's 39 touches. That's 54%. He had 21 touches, and they ran the fewest plays in the league last week. If you have Carson, you're starting him regardless of matchup. The same goes on the other side with Connor. Pittsburgh was dominated by New England in all aspects of the game, so his box score doesn't really reflect his role in the offense, and it doesn't reflect his upside this season. He's the team's clear bell cow running back, as 44% of Samuel's snaps came on special teams, with Connor maintaining his featured role in the backfield. Seattle just got trucked by Andy Dalton last week, so I'm not expecting Big Ben to struggle very much in this spot, especially at home. The one concern is that Seattle always plays slow, which kind of reduces the amount of plays that the opposing team can run. But this is a bounce back spot for the entire Steelers offense, and Connor needs to be started in all leagues. Buffalo traveling to the Giants this week. Week 1 was very odd for the Bills' backfield. So we've got Yeldon playing 2 offensive snaps. He's clearly not part of the game plan. Never was going to be if you followed them through the offseason. Then Gore had 19 snaps. Singletary had 45, and all of Gore's snaps were at running back, with Singletary splitting out wide or in the slot for 12 of his 45. So knowing that, I guarantee you no one would have guessed what actually happened in Gore having 11 carries to Singletary's 4. Kind of crazy how that happened given the snap shares, but it's not what we can expect going forward. So Gore had 11 carries for 20 yards. Singletary had 4 carries for 70 yards, plus 5 receptions on his 6 targets for another 28. So Gore had a carry on 58% of his offensive snaps and did absolutely nothing with them. Singletary is clearly the best running back in this backfield, clearly the most explosive on a team that is explosive. I expect him to have a featured role by the end of the season, and I'm starting him this week against the Giants as a low-end running back 2. They're currently 1.5 point favorites, and I can't imagine the Bills will continue with the same touch distribution that they had last week. Singletary should get close to 10 carries and will be involved in the receiving game. Like it or not, this is an explosive offense that Buffalo has put together, and it's one that the public has been fading for far too long. Start Singletary, and obviously, on the other side, you're starting Saquon. 49ers at Bengals. The 49ers actually opened as 1.5 point road favorites, but the line has shifted, so now the Bengals are 2 point home favorites. I highlighted in Thursday's video, I believe, that the Bengals actually showed smart play calling last week, something they haven't done in a really long time. So since I also think that the 49ers are an extremely well-coached team, this game has sneaky shootout potential, even if it looks like a dud on the surface. On the 49ers side, Coleman is out a month to a month and a half with a high ankle sprain, so our boy Breida is now the lead back. Mostert will factor in as well, but Breida should see the majority of touches. Mostert is startable in like 16 team leagues if you need someone. But other than that, we're not starting him. Nice guy to own though if you have a bench spot just in case something happens to Breida or the split's a little closer than we feel. But in 12 and 10, even 14 team leagues, you're not starting him. Breida, though, is a nice flex play in 12-team leagues. The Bengals did a good job slowing down the Seahawks run game last week, but the 49ers are an extremely creative team with their running backs, and Breida should be used enough as a pass catcher to make up for any potential trouble he has on the ground. On the Bengals side, the running back situation is currently a little bit murky. Mixon has an ankle injury, and we don't yet know if he'll be able to play on Sunday, so I'll run through both scenarios. If Mixon plays, then I'd avoid the backfield. He's not going to be 100%, and so if they're going to split time, it's really a lot less than ideal. If he's out, then Bernard is a running back too, and he gets better as you increase from standard to full PPR. I would not call him a must start, but I'd be looking to get him into lineups if I don't have a really nice option ahead of him. Next game is Chargers at Lions. The Chargers are 2.5 point road favorites with a fairly high 47.5 point implied total. The backfield split played out exactly how we expected. They continue to give Eckler around 18 touches, 17 or 18, every single week for Eckler. Very easy to project. Jackson mixes in for the rest. So however many they have left, Jackson gets the rest of them. That makes Eckler nearly matchup proof as a high-end running back too, because a lot of those touches are high-value touches. Jackson is more of a 16-team league play, especially in a mediocre running back matchup. The Lions have continued to be just disgraceful with their play calling. Happened again on Sunday. inexplicably blowing an 18-point second half lead while giving CJ Anderson 11 hyperly inefficient carries. The good news, I guess, is that they did play Kerryon Johnson more than Anderson, so nice job for not being completely idiotic. But this coaching staff continues to hold back the offense, and that's going to become overwhelmingly apparent to the public when they're not playing the Cardinals. You probably have to start Kerryon Johnson given where you drafted him, but he's a low end too. So if you have better options, play them. Vikings at Packers is next, and we knew that the Vikings wanted to run the football a lot more this season, but 79% run rate is not something that we should expect going forward. No team is going to run that much. Madison needs to be owned in case Cook goes down, but Dalvin Cook is the only running back you can play on the Vikings, and you're starting him regardless of matchup. The Packers do have an improved defense this season, but Cook remains matchup proof. For the Packers, I'm giving them a small pass for week 1. Very few teams wouldn't struggle traveling to Chicago and giving the Bears a month to prepare a game plan to stop you. They do need to be better, but let's be honest. The Bears are an elite defense. Jones is in a similar situation to Kerryon Johnson. You're likely forced to start him given where you took him, but he's a low end too in a pretty difficult matchup. So if you have better options, then you can go there. Although I'll say I feel a tad bit better about Jones than I do Kerryon this week. Jaguars at Texans is next. Fournette is a must start this week, even with the Foles injury really hurting the upside of the offense. Minshew's stats look really nice, and box score watchers are going to see that and think that he's good, and he's got talent. I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback, but you got to look at it for what it was. The Chiefs are not a good defense, and a lot of his production came in garbage time. So his stats look really good, but it's not because he's an elite quarterback. It's just because of the situation. This matchup doesn't look all that scary, so I have a little bit of faith that the Jaguars are still going to be able to put up some points. The Saints got dominated by the Texans on the ground last week, so this bodes really well for the offense just looking at this and being like, all right, give the ball to Fournette in the run game, in the receiving game. It worked for the Saints last week. We're going to try and throw the ball as much as we can, but we're going to run the offense through Fournette. Because of that, you got to start him. On the Texans side, the running backs are touchdown dependent in this one. So we've got Hyde with 0 receiving upside. Had a nice week, but he was really efficient and it still wasn't even that great. So I wouldn't be playing him outside of really deep standard leagues, which don't really exist. Duke is a viable flex play in half and full PPR leagues, but you're probably going to be disappointed unless he scores a touchdown. If he scores, you're going to like what happened. But if he doesn't score, you're going to wish you benched him. So it's really up to you if you play him in the flex. If you got better options, though, I'd probably go there. Patriots at Dolphins is next, and oh my goodness, it is very rare to see an 18.5 point road favorite. You don't see that very often, but it just goes to show you the Dolphins are tanking right at the beginning of the season, which is what they should do. They're being smart, but it's going to be a gold mine for fantasy production on the opposing side all season long. All Dolphins players are completely unusable this week, and basically all Patriots players are usable. You're gonna want the touchdowns because it's not like they're gonna need to pepper short passes, but the good news is everyone's gonna get a chance to score. Sony Michel had a bad week, but you're starting him. White is much better in close games where they need to pass more, but you're starting him in the flex. All the wide receivers you're basically starting. Kind of depends on the Antonio Brown situation, to be completely honest. But especially if he misses the game, you're starting everyone from this game. The one interesting thing will be who starts between Burkhead and Damian Harris. We know that they really like Bolden as a special teamer, so they typically do have 4 running backs, but they only start 3 of them, or really play 3 of them, because Bolden plays a bunch of special teams. He could play a little bit in this one if it's ugly late, but typically you're only looking at like 1 to 2 carries for Bolden, if that, and it's not in close games. It'll be interesting though, Damian Harris was a healthy scratch last week. So if they want to say, hey, Let's get this young kid some carries, see what he's got. We're going to win this game even if you put me out there at running back. So let's just give the kid some carries and see what happens. Now they might not. They might just keep him inactive and play Burkhead, in which case you're starting Burkhead as well. But honestly, if Damian Harris is active and playing in this game, he's not the worst flex play if you're desperate. But there's also a chance that he's completely inactive. So I'm not saying go out and grab Damian Harris because he's going to go off this week. Just keep an eye on it. Chiefs at Raiders is next, and the Chiefs have the second highest projected total of the week behind the Patriots, even with Hill out. That's how good they are on offense. The Raiders are going to be missing their top safety and their top cornerback in this one, so it's not going to be shocking at all when the Chiefs hang 40 again. This is a two-man committee behind McCoy and Williams, but with how good the offense is, you can start both of them. I'd absolutely start Williams as like a mid-range running back too, with McCoy more as a flex play, given that they're going to feature Williams a little bit more in the passing game. For the Raiders, you need to start Jacobs, given that he's the full-time goal line back. He's going to get all the carries. He should get some targets. Just be aware that he only had one last week, so he wasn't featured. But they also had a really positive game script. So maybe when they're going to be down, which will be pretty much every game moving forward, then maybe they feature him a little bit more through the air. But we're going to need to see. So he had 23 carries last week. That's really nice. He had the 2 touchdowns. Really nice. But this week he's probably going to be closer to 14 or 15 carries. And if he's still only seeing 1 or 2 targets, he's going to need a touchdown. So he's still a mid to low end running back too, honestly. But I would start him, given that if they get close, he's going to be the guy getting the football. Just know that his floor is a lot lower than most people think. Bears at Broncos now, and I'm not starting any Bears running back this week. Montgomery is going to slowly take work away from Mike Davis, but it should be close to a 50-50 split this week, and that's not great in a matchup in Denver. You can play Cohen in full PPR leagues, but he's really just a slot receiver at this point, and it's possible he loses a few more snaps to Miller as he recovers from his ankle injury. So I'm just staying away from the Bears completely in this one. The same goes for the Broncos. The Bears are an elite defense, as I'm sure you know, and there's no way in the world you're playing Freeman because he doesn't have much receiving work. But realistically, the reports were true. I mean, they said they wanted to split Freeman and Lindsey 50-50, and that's what's happening even in passing downs. So Freeman's getting work in the receiving game. It's just not that much. It's killing Lindsey's work in the receiving game, and both of them don't get enough work on the ground to be viable in a pretty bad offense. So stay away. Next, we have Saints at Rams, and this one's a little bit more difficult to break down than the other games, mainly because of the Rams side. So Gurley and Brown are really both touchdown reliant plays at this point. Gurley had 0 red zone carries last week and was given just 1 target and clearly had his touches capped. Brown also wasn't used in the receiving game, but he was still given enough work to be flex viable if he scores. So you need to start Gurley and just hope that they either start using him more in the passing game, give him something in the red zone, but it's entirely possible that they don't, that they say we're not putting him in the red zone. We're only giving him these carries that we feel comfortable with. And if that's the case, he's going to turn more into a running back 2 to flex play. Fortunately, since we talked about avoiding him all summer, I'm pretty sure almost none of you have him. On the Saints side, Kamara is an obvious start. Don't need to go further into that. Latavius is flex viable. This should be a high scoring game. There's a good chance he scores a touchdown. Although I'll say I much prefer targeting him in home games because they typically score more in home games. So there's a better chance he scores a touchdown. And since a lot of his value comes from touchdowns, we want to target him in higher scoring games. So if he scores, you'll be glad you started him. But if not, you're probably going to end up being disappointed. So if you have a better option in the flex that has a higher floor and you want that higher floor, you can go there. Eagles at Falcons is next, and I'm starting Miles Sanders this week. I benched him last week just to see how they use him, and I'm encouraged enough by what I saw to put him into the starting lineup this week in a great matchup with the Falcons. Atlanta just got run over by the Vikings, so they're not going to fare very well against the top offensive line in the league of the Eagles. They're also the best possible matchup for pass-catching running backs, and I'm just praying that they finally unleash Sanders. He's not going to be like a 90% player, but like I've said all offseason, doesn't need to get to that. A few more carries, a few targets, and this dude's going to be startable every single week. In week 1, Sanders actually ran 17 routes compared to 16 by Howard and Sproles. It just doesn't look that way for people not paying attention. He was also the lead back in snaps by a good amount, had a 21-yard touchdown called back, and was given 2 other goal line carries. Don't look at the box score. Trade for him if you can, and start him if you have him, because Sanders' season is about to begin. In Atlanta, we have Ito Smith and Freeman in a complete timeshare. A little bit surprising because we expected Ito to get snaps, but not 50-50. I mean, they are splitting the time 50-50 with Ito actually running more routes than Freeman. The Eagles are a good matchup for receptions to running backs, but with how bad they looked last week and splitting snaps, you can start one of them in the flex if you want to, but you can't possibly feel good about that. So maybe they step it up when they return home this week, but I'd rather just bench them and see if they prove it. Because until one of them proves they're going to be the lead back, I don't want to start them as a committee. Final game is Browns at Jets, and Sam Darnold has mono, and now Lev Bell has a shoulder injury. So the matchup just got a whole lot better for the Browns. The news just kind of broke as I'm recording this, and the line has dropped from Browns -1 to Browns -4.5, which if you don't know sports betting, that just means Browns are favored by 4.5 points now. It could dip further if Bell misses the game. I have no idea. The results are not out. If he does miss, then you can start Ty Montgomery in the flex. He'll basically assume not a full-time role, but a really large role in the offense. You won't feel good about that, and I'm saying you can start him in the flex, but you probably have a better option given that there's no bye weeks yet. If Bell does play, then I am starting him because he was a basically full-time player in week 1, and they'll need to lean on him with Sam out. Regardless of what happens with Bell, though, you're starting Chubb. He dominated the snap share. He ran a lot more routes than he was last season. He had a touchdown vultured, but that's going to happen with running backs from time to time. It's nothing to worry about. He is a stud running back 1. So that's everything you should need answered at the running back position this week. If you have multiple players I listed as starts, then just look at my rankings. That's my answer for which one I would start. Again, you can see that along with a bunch of other content and some free articles at our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. But that's the end of this one. I hope you all did enjoy. If you did, how about hitting that like button? If you're new here, how about subscribing to the channel? But thanks for watching.